right, we should be back here in just a minute or so.
Nice.
Okay, I think we have everybody back. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed the networking tonight, and welcome to our meeting for the Denver Association of Assisted Living. Can everybody see my my page on your screen that I'm sharing?
Yep.
All right. Yep. Let's get started. So we just went through our networking, and oh yeah, here's all the instructions. I always forget to tell you this. So we'll get through the instructions here. We always want to give homage to Gene Greeno. And Gene was instrumental in the founding of the RAL Academy, the RAL National Association, and had introduced thousands of people to the model of residential style assisted living. His motto was do good and do well. We miss him. We lost him in 21, but his legacy lives on. We encourage everybody to visit our website, which is DAALR.com. And if you're in Colorado, particularly, there's some places that you would want to go. The helpful links is the first place to start with. And on the helpful links page, you will see the Chapter 7. Actually, this is the 2023 regulations. I need to go in and adjust that, but we just got the new regulations uploaded there. If you're operating in Colorado, you need to know these regulations like the back of your hand. These are the rules to operate here in Colorado. Also, our Facebook page, which is Denver ALR, we encourage everybody to join that. And we appreciate everybody that signs up on Meetup. And that just helps us communicate with everybody. And we put all of our meetings on here, so you'll never miss a meeting if you are on Meetup. Let's talk a little bit about our sponsors tonight. And we've got a good group of sponsors. We'll start with Hall Ryan Construction with 35 years of combined construction experience. The exceptional team at Hall Ryan Construction has transformed residential and commercial properties by bringing a high-touch, customer-centric approach to every engagement. On the insurance side, Hall Ryan's reconstruction and roofing expertise is a skill that many insurance companies actively seek out. Their reliance on Hall Ryan's experience in helping them write estimates has made Hall Ryan a well-respected and trusted expert in the field. Next, we have, this is Palm University. Brett Chakevis has put together a really nice program for a high-end 16-bed model. Also on his website is a great collection of training videos, mostly geared to the experienced operators. So navigate to palm.university to get more information. And next we have the RAL National Association. Brian, would you like to say a few words about this?
Sure, I would like to say it. It's interesting. I'm the president of the RAL National Association. We've got a really dynamic group working there. The association is evolving a little bit right now. It looks like we're trying to add back in a few new resources that we had before, so we're growing. And we have a dynamic group of people who are members. And so every month there's a monthly meetup group. That association meetup group was last week, and it covers a lot of ground such as I'm going to talk about today, as well as other kinds of things about tools that are useful for assisted living owners and operators.
Thanks, Brian. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the RAL Academy. If you are new in this industry, this is a great place to get started. And they've got a very good program that kind of teaches you the basics of the business. And keep in mind, this is a business, so you want to know about that. It's not just about helping people, it's about running a business as well. So you can visit ralacademy.com for information on that. Next, we can talk about assisted living marketing. Peter Brissett is a great website developer and understands the assisted living business. And he's done our website for DAALR. He's done my website for Grand Avenue Brokers. So you can visit assistedlivingmarketing.com if you need a website for your assisted living. Next would be Senior Care Administrator Coaching, LLC. This is Janet Cornell. Janet actually spoke at our last meeting, and she does consulting for assisted living. She'll come in and do a mock survey. She can also provide the 40-hour administrative training, staff training, and employee file compliance and compliant documents. So you can visit her at scac-janet.com. Next, we have ICOR. This is the Investment Community of the Rockies. ICOR is Colorado's only nationally recognized and award-winning real estate investors association, serving Denver Metro, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, and Northern Colorado, as well as real estate and rental property investors across the state. And next we have our own Brian Pinkowski. You want to talk about not only Colorado's assisted living lawyers, but the nation's assisted living lawyers.
Well, thank you very much. Interesting. We were just doing somebody was marketing to us recently, and they said, well, how's your digital presence? And I said, well, you type in assisted living and you get a bunch of plaintiffs law firms who are suing nursing homes, and that's just not us. So if you don't know about us, it's because you're looking online. I don't know. But if you're trying to find out about specific subjects that are in the assisted living business, then you'll run across us pretty quickly. This is a pretty exciting group we have here tonight. I know we have somebody from Texas. We got somebody from Steve, I forget if East Coast someplace. We got people from all over the place in your group tonight, and it's exciting. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about how the changes in Colorado regulations actually are starting to line up a little bit more with what we see at the federal level. Thank you, Vern.
You bet, Brian. Next, I'll talk a little bit about A Better Way Funding. This is one of the groups that I'm with, and we do lease options for group homes. So if you're interested in finding out more about what that lease option looks like, you can go to our webpage, which is ralleaseoptions.com. And speaking of who I'm involved with, also I own Grand Avenue Business Brokers. I hang my license at A Better Way Realty. I've got over 30 years of business experience. I've done over 60 assisted living transactions and over 100 million in those transactions. I am a certified business intermediary, and obviously my specialty is assisted living. You can visit my website at grandavenuebrokers.com. Just a little bit of the recent activity. We do have 55 beds available in Eastern Colorado. We've got 16 beds available. It's a private pay facility in the North Metro area, and we do have ABW funding available for that. We've got 12 beds available in the Northwest rural of Denver. We closed recently on 46 beds in Northwest Denver, and we closed recently on 8 beds on the Western Slope. So if you need any help buying or selling, you can give me a call, 303-888-0078. Next, the Colorado Assisted Living Association. We always look for an update from them, and I think maybe Brian has an update.
Yeah, we're working on a draft law with respect to credential portability. So when staff at one assisted living place leaves and goes to another assisted living place, sometimes there's a bit of a fight between the people who pay for the TB testing or whatever, and they don't want to relinquish those certifications when somebody goes to a new place. And so we're actually working with the legislature right now at CALA help even that out so that the people who are the beneficiaries of that training actually own their credentials and can take them with them. That's a portability, training portability. So we're working on that right now. Our bill is being discussed in Colorado on the floor this morning, and hopefully we've got some great supporters in the legislature, and I expect that'll get passed.
Thanks, Brian. That's
Thanks,
great
Brian.
work that they're doing. If you own an assisted living in Colorado, I highly encourage you to join this association. And now we're going to go on to the presentation from Brian Pinkowski. I've known Brian for several years now. We've done a lot of work together, and I have a great admiration for him and his wife. And so I always ask Brian and Michelle to come and present some things to the group here. Brian, would you like to take over the screen?
Yeah, let me try that. This will stop. Yes, we're going to continue to do that. And where is it? Hold on. I got some new features. Oh, here we go. Put this in play mode. All right. So, hi, everyone. It is great to be here. I like visiting with the Denver ALR people and the entire community here because it is, I mean, we just all know each other really, really well. And I think that's important for you all as you guys are doing business with each other. You're finding new opportunities. And I will tell you that I feel the same way about Vern and ABW Realty. I refer a lot of people to them, even referred some people today, because I think that they help people get where they need to be going. So let's get on with the presentation. Last year in November, the Colorado Department of Health changed some assisted living regulations, and we call those Chapter 7 regulations. Michelle and I have been advocates in the community for quite some time, and we work on a whole variety of things. I think we've had enough introduction about who we are, so if you don't mind, we'll move on from that. And of course, we're lawyers, but this is not legal advice that you're getting. This is educational only. If you have a legal issue that flows from anything here, consult your legal counsel for advice to your specific situation. Okay, not so long ago, the Colorado Department of Health was issuing immediate Jeopardy citations, which are expensive, look bad on people's record, and they were often a little bit over the top. And I'm sure you have your own examples, but they were really alarmingly subjective. So, for example, I had a client who had some snow outside one of the doors. And without taking any measurements or anything else like that, they said, okay, that the snow was cleared for a certain distance. And they said, well, that distance wasn't enough, whatever enough is. So that poses an immediate jeopardy harm, subjecting your facility to penalties and additional conditions. So I'm sure you have some of your own examples of the alarmingly subjective stuff. And most of the community was squawking about that, and not just us, but we were squawking as well on behalf of our communities. And so we were asking them, said, guys, this doesn't really work for a whole variety of reasons. The regulation that you have now, which was even as current as 2021, it's just too broad. Actual harm or potential for serious harm or injury. Potential. It's that word potential that could get really out of control. And so they say, yeah, there's a potential that somebody could get harmed if that snow was not 10 feet or 15 feet away from the door or whatever, or if there was a little step that was just the wrong size. There's a potential. What does that mean, potential? But it didn't even say potential in the language of the citation. What it said was serious bodily injury and possible death could occur. So it wasn't even a potential. Yeah, I can conceive this might happen. It could happen. There's a scenario out there that this could happen. And so that was causing a lot of stress for people. Now, it's easy to get upset about the government and them kind of overreaching and getting excited about things. But in fact, they're just trying to do what they think their job is, and they get kind of locked into a mindset. And we're going to talk about that mindset later. But after having seen a number of those, we wrote them a letter. Now, it wasn't just us, but this is what we told them. We said back in October 2021, we said, guys, there's an opportunity. You're revising the regulations planned for Chapter 7 to demonstrate. You could, because tensions were a little high between the department and the assisted living community, you could demonstrate a willingness to ameliorate some of the concerns of the assisted living community in regard to industry fears of inconsistent IJ determinations. Specifically, the revisions to Chapter 7, the department can align its regulations regarding IJs with the more concrete standards issued by the Department of Health and Human Services, CMS. You guys could kind of make peace a little bit if you made a change that lined up a little bit more with federal government, because the federal laws they make a little bit more sense. And we told them, we said, could is more speculative. And that's what we're seeing in the surveys. Could is speculative and leaves open the possibility of outcomes that are merely imaginable. Yeah, it could happen, sure. Rather than outcomes that have an appreciable likelihood of actually developing and becoming real. Indeed, this is exactly what is alleged by many in the assisted living community. You guys, what's being alleged is, hey, you guys are speculating. You're not actually regulating in a way that's helpful. And we told them, you're trailing behind the federal government years. They hadn't changed the language. Well, in 2019, they had the opportunity to change it. Even the federal government changed it in 2019. They said, no, this is vague. This is vague. So we can't really use that. So we told them, CMS agrees with us. And CMS in 2019, well before 2021, took steps to eliminate the ambiguity and strengthen the focus on likelihood of occurring. Don't penalize me for something you can imagine. Penalize me for something that's likely to happen or has happened. Okay, so from CMS, you know who that is. That's the federal government's Medicaid regulators. It says, from CMS, it says an immediate jeopardy is a situation in which a recipient of care has suffered or is likely to suffer serious injury, harm, impairment, or death as a result of the provider's noncompliance. That's the federal language. So we go from could, maybe it could happen, to no, this has got to be likely before you start laying down the law on people. And that identified noncompliance creates a likelihood, and they define, what's a likelihood? It's a reasonable expectation that such harm will occur if not corrected, not simply the potential. They said potential. In 2019, they said potential. Not simply the potential for that level of harm to occur. Okay, so governments, any governments in the world, don't like to be wrong, admit they're being wrong, and certainly don't like to admit that they're making change as a result of some outside pressure. Everything they do is just on their own. And so they took our letter and they said, thank you for sharing this information. Please be aware that because ALRs are not certified by CMS, the department has not routinely aligned with CMS regulations. However, when this has been presented and contemplated in the past, the majority of the ALR industry stakeholders objected because they are not certified and do not have to follow CMS regulations. So if you've been on the debate team, you recognize that as, hey, you're not really answering the question. We're not telling you to make everything like CMS. Because whether somebody's in the Medicaid program or not, you're still issuing IJs based on some standard, and your training standards are based on that Medicaid standard. So maybe we need to make a change here. So basically they said, well, nobody can tell us what to do. All right, and that's not really fair. They were probably having very serious conversations internally, and that's what it ended up looking like. So they said, no. Okay. Nonetheless, they made movement. They made significant movement. Who was it who had that song about, yeah, the grass keeps coming up through the sidewalk? That's where the people are pushing for liberty or something like that. So that's the same kind of thing. They made movement in 2023 with the change. They didn't talk about it, but they did it. So again, just to remind you, this is what it used to say: actual or potential for serious injury or harm. 2023, remember, the federal government changed it in 2019. Actual or potential. Now let's talk about that. So gradients of danger that we're dealing with, if you're a regulator, something has occurred. Somebody has been seriously injured, seriously harmed, or death has occurred. It has happened. Or it's likely to occur. There's a reasonable expectation that, you know, somebody is going to cut themselves on those razor blades in the carpet. That's likely to occur. Or there's a potential to occur. We don't really know what that means. Even the federal government thought that was ambiguous. And then how the surveyors were writing it, yeah, it could occur. I can imagine that. I don't know. And so, you know, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but that's kind of how it felt sometimes to a lot of people who were running assisted living. What do you mean it could occur? You're going to penalize me on your imagination? Yeah. But like I said, they moved. This is a really, really big deal. So they took that same language, they said actual or potential for serious injury or harm, and they didn't change it. Because like everybody else, they want to be right and they're not going to admit they're being wrong. But what they did was soften it by adding the next sentence. In determining the level of deficiency to be cited, potential shall mean there is a reasonable expectation that the non-compliance will result in an adverse outcome. Okay. They didn't match exactly the language. They said this adverse outcome, we'll deal with that later on, and maybe they'll make the change in the future. But they're moving in a really positive direction. There is a reasonable expectation that the non-compliance, this non-compliance that we're citing you for, is going to result in an adverse outcome. That is such a big move. Very big move for a regulator. And they added other language. They said, okay, well, the amount of the fine might vary. And these variations, it's the potential for harm shall mean there's a reasonable expectation the assisted living residence is non-compliant is going to result in an adverse outcome. So it's got to be related to some measurable expectation that harm is going to result. That's a big change. That is a big change. Okay, it isn't perfectly clear about, well, what happens if somebody, you know, leaves a Lego on the floor and steps on it? Okay, is that an immediate jeopardy or what? We don't really know about that. We can talk about actual circumstances over the next few months between now and the CALA conference, which is happening in July or June or something like that. And we'll be able to talk about that because we'll have some data, because the department will be out there issuing survey citations. So this is a really big movement though. And they go on. They made another change to the regulations. Yeah, they didn't talk about it. They just did it. Okay. We got the fines. We've heard a lot about the fines. Janet did a great job talking about the size of the fines last month, and that was good. But there's something else to those fines. We have ranges. This is the warm-up language. Is okay, what are the ranges of these fines going to be? Of course, the ones we're mostly interested in are the level E, the immediate jeopardy fines. All right, so these fines are based on the likelihood of serious injury, serious harm, serious impairment, or death. And then the fine can be between this number and this number. But at least now, operators can be arguing about something that somebody can weigh. How likely is it that somebody's going to run out in the streets if they have to go around the corner and across the block or something like that? How likely is that really? We don't really know. So that's something that reasonable people are going to differ about. But now we're talking about something that's a little bit more concrete than, yeah, that could happen. I can imagine that. Now, the number that everybody was worried about, however, was this $10,000 number. But let's take a breath and read it again in a new moment of time here. It's based on actual serious injury, serious harm, serious impairment, or death. Actual. Except that the department may exceed for any egregious. We don't know what egregious is, but we have to start with actual. And serious injury, serious harm, serious impairment. I would argue that if a couple of them start wrestling with a couple residents, start arguing, and one of them is waving her hand around and scratches the other one by accident while they're having this argument, but that's not a serious injury or a serious harm or serious impairment or death. So that's a positive thing. Again, a big change from, yeah, that could happen. Again, so where did we move? We moved from, yeah, it could occur. It could occur. I can imagine that situation, to something that, well, there's a potential for that. How different potential is from could. The department historically didn't see a lot of difference, and so they used a lot of the language interchangeably. But it was certainly different than likely to occur. Likely to occur. And has occurred. So we're now moving in the right direction for regulating things that matter in terms of looking after people. Okay, so what's driving this slow pace of change? First, you need to know that the government is afraid of very specific things. And if you've ever worked in the government at any level in any country, you'll recognize this. In fact, you'll recognize this right now with Israel and the whole Gaza situation. You'll recognize this with Russia and Putin and the Ukraine situation. You will recognize this. Well, there's a precedent. If we back off now, people will, they'll evaluate on it. There's a precedent. We can't have that. That'll be used against us. Okay, that's one fear. Another is, oh my God, if we let this happen, the floodgates will open. All of our formal vassal states will leave us. Everybody will be running around making fighting deficiencies and harming residents right and left. The floodgates will open. These are words that they use in the meeting rooms in government. Floodgates, precedent, and of course, it's a slippery slope. If we do this, this is just like, and camel's nose under the tent. This is like, it'll happen. This will just go on endlessly. So these are things that they're concerned about. So the fact that they are making these movements is a big deal. And you got to recognize that regardless of this language that they use while defending their positions on things, everywhere in the world, at every level of government, they moved. They moved in a way that's positive for the industry, and that needs to be respected and appreciated. And I, for one, have heard from a lot of people in the assisted living community in Colorado that the number of no deficiency surveys has changed. There's a lot more no deficiency surveys. People are actually not feeling terrible after there's a survey event. And so things are changing in a really, really positive way. And while it's always fun to complain about the government and them penalizing and taxing and everything else like that, we have to recognize when things are happening in the right direction. And this is one of those situations. Because of course, on both sides of that argument, where this is just like in Ghostbusters, oh my God, it's human sacrifice, cats and dogs, masses living together, mass hysteria. These are the arguments that they're afraid of when making a change. But they've made a change. And I think we're going to see a lot of positive results from that change. We'll find new things to fight about because it's natural. they're regulators, and this is a private business community, and that's the way it goes. But this is a big change. We should celebrate it. Yeah, back to what's happening internationally as well as locally. No government official will ever admit being wrong, or being wrong, or experiencing being wrong. It's true. That's death. That is like death. Nope. You need to throw me a bone so that I can save face on my way out while I'm doing it. Well, that didn't happen with Colorado. The Department of Health, they just did this on their own. First, they defended, like I read you from the correspondence I got from them. But then on their own, they made the change. I can't tell you how huge this is. Okay, so there's not a whole lot in here that you might want. I want to thank you for listening, and I'll break the screen share in a moment. If there was anything in the slides that you want, send me a note. If you want to be on a mailing list from us so we can talk about things in the future, just scan this, and I'll send you the slides that I have here for the evening, and we'll also be in communication and share information that we get that's available to you. I will leave this up for right now, if that's okay, Vern. But I can't see anybody, so I'll have to have some help. Are there any questions, comments, observations?
Sure, I have a question. It still seems rather gray when you say likely to happen. How do they define that?
Well, it's not defined. Yeah, there's going to be things to talk about. For example, if you have a cat on a countertop and a little plastic bottle that's next to it, is that likely that cat's going to knock that over? Yep. How about if you had a bunch of power tools in the middle of the living room because the construction guy was setting things down while people were walking around and didn't put their tools away? Somebody likely to trip and fall? Maybe so. There's going to be some things that we're going to have to talk about, but this is so much more clear than whether something is imaginable. You're right. Likelihood is a thing. But it's a thing that people have been arguing about in courts of law for hundreds of years. So there's a lot of jury instructions. Something is more likely than not to happen. And it's got to be serious injury, serious harm, serious impairment, or death. Likely, those are the likelihoods. What is it like? Is somebody likely to die if they slip on ice or water on the kitchen floor that's there due to a leaking refrigerator? Maybe not die, but could very well be likely to hurt themselves in a way, break a hip, bang a head as they're falling down. There's a lot of things that we can talk about. You're right. It's not perfectly clear. Life's not perfectly clear, but this is one of those areas now where we can talk about things in a much more realistic fashion.
So if somebody got a decent fine, let's say, obviously it may not be worth arguing over 1,000, but it might be worth arguing over 5,000. Is that something that can be done? Can you, is there
Sure.
kind of a process where you can argue that and somebody makes a decision?
Yes. Well, there's the they call it the informal dispute resolution process, but that's actually an informal name. That's not the name of it. It's actually called a review, and that's where you present to a bunch of people who are either CDPHE staff or other government officials, and they go over the data, and the surveyor listens to somebody make a presentation. They decide, was this fairly issued or not? And for the most part, they pretty much always agree with their coworkers. And then you can also have an appeal, in which case you appeal it. You say, yeah, I'm appealing this. I'll send you a notice, and in your deficiency notice, it give you a deadline, a 30-day deadline to file an appeal. There's not much to the appeal. It can be just a simple email that says, I appeal this. It's better if it has a little bit more legal description to it, and we help with that sort of thing with a number of people. And then it goes to an administrative law judge, which is a lesser court. It's not a district court, it's a lesser court. And that gives us a chance to talk about it. Now, again, governments would rather die than be wrong, so they'll want to fight about everything, even if it's a silly thing. But having somebody else at the table, like the Attorney General's office, can often promote a good conversation. It changes things. So when people are talking, solutions can happen. And that's the best thing about the appeals process, is that it actually gets real communication happening.
Okay, good to know. Questions from
Yeah.
the audience? Observations
All
from
right.
the examples from the audience.
Yeah. How about you got any previous examples from surveys that you had in the past, which were, this was strictly an imaginable harm that they fined me for?
Yeah, hi, this is Fran.
Fran.
I had a little metal on right by the fence, and they fined me for it.
On a fence?
Yeah, by the fence. It was a old swing that just sat there for me to, yeah. So they just fined me for it, and I'm like, what? Yeah, that's a potential thing that it could harm people. So
Yeah, it could potentially. I can imagine how somebody could. I don't know what they would do.
yeah, I don't.
Do some Jedi back springs and cut themselves. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Any other good stories? I know we got some operators on here. I saw Teddy.
Hi.
All right.
Hey, I just wanted to kind of back up for a second as it relates to the Attorney General's participation. This had nothing to do with a deficiency, but it had to do with a chow and some pretty egregious mistakes made by the state in terms of not evaluating or going back for surveys on a house that I ended up purchasing. And I appealed it. And then I appealed it. And what happened, from my point of view, it's my perspective, that there was no benefit at all to us in having the AG involved. In fact, it was apparent to me from the get-go that they were collaborating. The state was, the CDPHE staff they were collaborating with them. We even had a mediator judge. He was a wonderful guy, but there was no opportunity in that situation for me, for my organization to speak. Once it went to that level, it was all about interpretation and the judge going from one room to the next to discuss what happened. But my point is that the AG was not neutral.
And there was some retribution that we experienced.
A lot.
Yeah, I know, right? Kale's the priest.
But of course.
Yeah, but they certainly they allowed us to purchase a chow for a facility that had no residents. Yet when we tried to turn around and sell our other property, they wouldn't allow a chow because it was empty. So it was pretty.
Did you have an attorney?
At that point,
we did. I
Yeah.
did have an attorney, and I'm a go-to for attorneys. I mean, if they can help me, that's what I like. I think I made a poor choice, not knowing. She was more concerned about having a positive relationship with the AG than she was about helping me. I mean, there's all those conflicts of interests.
Yeah.
And that's what we experienced in that case. And I've always been very, very outspoken for 12, 13 years about regulations and so forth. And I just know that
they don't like when you talk.
they don't like when you speak up. That's what I've found.
No.
They really don't. And
No.
they find bizarre ways to to react. The last 3 surveys we've had have been 0 deficiencies. And we opened our second house with a Medicaid certification, BI certification, and the license. 7 surveyors in the house from 7 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night.
Not
And-
one of them following their own regulations
I mean, just one of the most unbelievable experiences I've ever had.
in the
And-
middle of COVID.
in the middle of COVID, and they left and we had 0 deficiencies. So we feel like we're doing a lot of good things, but we're not always rewarded for it.
So it's nice to hear the changes may
Are
help
coming,
all
right,
of us
right.
that way.
I'd only like to add one other thing in terms of our experience. This was recently. So the last 0 deficiency we received was about 2 months ago. And we get a letter in the mail that says, please provide your W-9. And we're going to send you $118 because you had 0 deficiencies.
As a performance incentive.
A performance incentive. And, you know, I'm being facetious about it, but don't bother writing it. Just don't bother. Then that's what you get for having a
Don't bother writing what?
facility, $118. So there you go.
Well, okay, so here's something that people are confused about a lot, and that is, what is the job of the Attorney General's office?
Mhm.
They're just the attorney for their client. So I was talking to some big hoop-de-doo developer who had a big hoop-de-doo law firm who had told them they were having a big problem with the health department on an issue that was related to a change of ownership. And it was being denied because it didn't go through the process correctly. And the big hoop-de-doo law firm was telling everybody, oh, well, we know the Attorney General. We got good relations with the Attorney General. Who cares? The decision maker is the department.
That's right.
Now, great. We've got great relationships with the people who we're talking with at the Attorney General's office. And privately, we will be honest with each other in a way that lawyers can do, but when clients are in the room, then it changes entirely. Because, you know,
Right.
we're going to send a message to the other people. That's just normal with any business transaction. And so people forget the Attorney General is not on anybody's side but the state. Their job is to defend the state. And the judge, or sometimes a mediator, is where you can make some traction. If you've got a good argument. I'm sorry that worked out that way for you. But this sort of language, well, it's not going to help that change of ownership issue, but it'll help a lot with with future kinds of penalties. All right, I like the stories though. I like the horse story. It helps us all prepare for the future. All right. Anybody else want to share some good news, bad news, or whatever? I like the 0 deficiencies too. They are learning. I was teasing them. Whenever I have an opportunity for a conference call with the state, I like to ask them, so you guys got any data that shows that punishment improves the delivery of healthcare at assisted living? Any indication of that at all? Punishment works anywhere? Anywhere? Does punishment work anywhere?
One of the
And the answer usually is, that's not the data that we.
This is Hillary. I'm with Teddy
ahead.
with RMCC. I was wondering if there's any way we can maybe discuss with Dr. Cox and his team, when we're on state calls with them, when we ask very specific questions, not we, meaning us, but just the community at large, he always responds with, it's not our job to educate, it's our job to regulate. And I find that to be so indicative of how they do business in general. It's so dismissive of the very people that they are in place to serve. I just don't understand why they wouldn't want to educate their provider community so that they could actually do what they want, which is what you're saying, don't punish people and expect better results. We know punitive
Exactly right.
stuff it gives the opposite.
Exactly. It's that old Gary Larson cartoon, right? The punishments will continue until morale improves. And actually, that's not correct. They do have an educational requirement under state law. Now, it is true that the health department specifically has 2 objectives, 2 specific requirements, and that is to establish and enforce standards.
Mhm. Sure.
That's one of the things that they're told to do. But at the state level, they're also told, state legislative level, they're also told they should be mentoring the assisted living community to create better health outcomes. And they kind of forget about that. And so that's the next area where we're going to work on that. It's like, you guys really need to do this. And that's where the Assisted Living Advisory Committee comes in. And I think they've got a couple of positions now. I don't know if those are closed or not, where they have an opportunity where they're forced to interact with the community, the regulated community. It's easier to regulate if you don't have to talk to people, right? You just issue rules. And sometimes they show up at things. And if you're not a member of the Colorado Assisted Living Association, you should be, and participate in the various committees that are on there, such as the Government Relations Committee, where we do communicate to the health department and Steve on a regular basis to try and help move things along and help understand their thinking about things. But generally speaking, this is back to the government insisting on being right. We just issue the new standards based on the research we did while on our phone sitting at the park, and just like when we were doing our COVID research, and then we issue the standards there, because they don't actually do any research at the health department. They just what they do, and they've said this in the answer to discovery that we've issued in court cases. You know, we just locate the best practices. Well, how do you do that? How do you do that? I mean, they're citing newspaper articles as part of the best practices. I'm not kidding. So, but they are moving. Let's come back to that. They have moved in a really, really positive way. So, yeah, it's easy to complain about people. What we want to do is take a page from our own complaint. We want to validate the positive and ignore the wrong stuff. We're not going to punish them into better behavior any more than they're going to punish us. Okay. Unless there's anybody else, why don't we wrap this up here?
Good job, Brian.
Anybody
Thanks
else want to
for
share?
your hard work? And I'm sure the community really benefits from it, even if they don't know about it. So,
Yeah.
Okay, let's give Brian a round of applause, everybody.
Hey. All right. Thank you.
All right. We're moving along pretty much a little ahead of schedule. So we can go to our haves and wants. If anybody has anything or wants anything from the group, this is an opportunity to address everybody here. So do we have any haves or wants? Okay, Brian.
I do. It's not exactly something I have or want, but along with the other changes in the regulations, everybody is required to be updating their residence agreements this year to include the involuntary discharge language. That's part of it, part of the regulation change, the involuntary discharge language. Everybody. So, you know, nobody has gotten a citation on it yet that I've heard, but it will be happening. Will be happening. So, you know, the regulations are out there, been out there since November. Please update that.
Thank you for the public announcement. Any other public announcements or haves or wants? Anna?
I just realized I'm muted, but I'm good. This is my first time with the group, and it's a pleasure to join everybody today. I just wanted to say thank you for letting me in today, and Brian, thank you for your presentation. That was really helpful, and as a pharmacy owner, we could laugh all day about these regulations, and but my job is to understand them and make sure we're following them. And like you said, sometimes it's so ambiguous. It's a little less, I think, ambiguous in the pharmacy world. But working with assisted living facilities, I do hear a lot about kind of, hey, Anna, what do we need to do here so we don't get cited? Or And, you know, that's, it's always great conversations to have. So, but anyways, I just wanted to say thank you for having, you know, allowing me to kind of join the group tonight. And if you guys have any questions for me, feel free. I put my information in the chat as well. There's my email and phone number, but no wants or concerns today.
All right. And yes, I will recommend to everybody to put your information into the chat there. Normally I remind you at the beginning, but before you leave, you can put your info in there, and then the little 3 dots next to where you put your info in allows you to save that file. So it is a way to get the information from the people that you've met tonight. And if there's nobody else that has anything to contribute, then we will wrap it up. I'll leave this open until everybody's gone. So if you want to just hang out and do a little networking amongst yourselves, then you're more than welcome to.
Well, I'm looking for a 30 to 50 bed place to buy. If anybody knows one of those. Could be Medicaid or not Medicaid.
Okay. Any particular place?
No.
All right. Okay, well, thanks for coming tonight. We'll see you all next month. And hope you have a great month.
Bye. Thank you, Vern.
You bet.
Thanks, Brian.
Everyone.
See you guys. Nice talking to you guys.
Thank you.
You guys have a great night.
Bye.
Here we go.